Hi everyone. So today we're going to be looking at something called multipliers, okay, and this works with percentages. They're a really efficient way for us to increase by a certain percentage or to decrease by a certain percentage. So I'm going to show you how to use them. They do use the information that we did last lesson where we filled in the conversion chart, okay, because we need to be able to convert our percentages into decimals. So make sure you've got that handy. So the first thing we're going to look at is how we've always done this traditionally, and to do an increase by 10%, I know what most of us have always done is we'll find 10% of 40, so that's 40 divided by 10, which is 4, okay, so that's our 10%, and then we've added that to the 40 to increase it, so 40 add 4, which is 44, and there's our answer. And that is a really useful method, and you still, even though I'm going to show you a new way, you still have to be able to do that, because the way I'm going to show you can only be done on a calculator. And of course, as you know, when you get to your GCSEs or any other exams in between, there are non-calculator exams, so you have to be able to do this anyway. And you could use it in a calculator exam, but this is much faster and much more efficient, so it's really worth knowing it. So that's how we've done it before now, and I'm going to show you now the new method. So we're looking at something called multipliers. So I'm going to use the same question: increase 40 by 10%. And the first thing I need you to consider is, if we're increasing by 10%, how many percent do we now have? Okay, if we've started off with 40 and we're increasing by 10%, what is our new percentage? And our new percentage will be 110%, because 40 is our original amount. Okay, so our 40 is 100%, because that's what we've begun with. Okay, so that's our 100%, and we want to add 10%. So 100% add 10% is 110%. Okay, it's 110%. Now I know some of you are thinking, but you can't have anything higher than 100%. You most certainly can. Okay. The 100% is always our original amount though. So now we're happy with this bit here. We're trying to find 110% of 40. Okay, that's what we're trying to achieve. So what we're going to do is to convert our 110% to a decimal. Okay, and looking on your chart, you should be able to tell me to convert to a decimal we divide by 100. Okay, so 110% equals 1.1. Okay, that's what happens when you divide by 100. By 100, goodness me. Okay, so what we've got here, once we've converted it to a decimal, that is what we call our multiplier. Okay, I might even just write that just so it pops out a little bit, because it's a really important word, multiplier. Okay, that's our multiplier. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's brilliant. Okay, all you have to do is our original amount, 40, and multiply it by a multiplier. Multiply by 1.1 and pop it into your calculator. You see that? Oops, not. 40 multiplied by 1.1, which is 44. Okay, in one swift move, so 44. And it's the same as we got last time. So this method is actually a lot faster. This bit in the middle, you'll actually, after doing a few, you probably, you'll be able to just see these. You won't need, I'm not expecting you to write all of this working out. I'm happy for you to say to increase by 10%, this is the multiplier. I always ask you to show your working out, but in this instant, actually, there's not really any working out. All I've done here is just to show you why it's working. Okay, so that's how we do this. Okay. So the original way that we'd have done this would probably be to have found perhaps 1% and then 15% and taken it off. Some of you might have found 10% and halved it again to get 5 and added them together and, to get the 15. There was a few different ways of doing that. But now this is something that my dad's always drilled into me when I was younger. And we would go to the shop and I'd say, oh, Dad, look, it's 15% off. And he'd say, yes, it might be 15% off, but it is still 85% on, okay? It's still not free. 15% off off equals 85% on. And that's because if we're taking 15% off, we're still paying for 85%, because don't forget our percentages add up to 100. Okay, so we're going to subtract this decrease from 100, and it'll tell you how much is left. Okay, so we're trying to find, essentially, by decreasing by 15%, we're trying to find 85% of 200. Okay, so we're going to find the multiplier for 85%, which is 0.85. And this is so we're going to do 200, multiply it by our multiplier 0.85. Okay, and that will give us our answer. Oops, what's that? Okay, so 200, let me see that, multiplied by 0.85, which is 170. Okay, pounds. Okay, so this multiplier, all we're doing is finding this as a decimal. But when we're decreasing, we have to make sure we're not finding the 15%, but kind of its opposite almost. Okay, it's opposite, so the 85% is what we need. You could find the 15%, we could times by 0.15, but then you'd have to subtract that from 200, which is another step. Whereas this, one go, it's done. Okay, so now I've got 4 different questions here. And I just want to know the multipliers. Okay, you'll notice I haven't put an amount in here. I don't want answers. Okay, I just want to know what my multiplier is. So to increase by 20%, my multiplier is going to be 1.2. Okay, because we're going to need 120% because it's an increase. So the multiplier is going to be 1.2. Okay, now this time we're looking at a decrease. So if we've got a 15% off, we've just looked at this one, we're going to have 85% on, so we're going to multiply by 0.85. Okay, and because it's less than 1, we know we're going to be decreasing. To increase by 47%, we're looking at 147%, which is going to give us 1.47 as a multiplier. And this last one here, to decrease by 30%. If it's 30% off, then it's 70% on. Okay, so we're looking at 70%, which gives us 0.7. Okay, so the first task I'd like you to do, and I have called it task 1. Okay, have a look at it, please. And it's just a case of matching up some percentages with their multipliers. Okay, have a go at that before you move on to the second half of this video, because that's just going to make sure you're really happy with these multipliers. And actually, once you've got the multipliers, the rest of it's quite nice. Okay, this is the new part for today. Okay, right, so we've just got a couple more now to have a look, a bit of a practice really on how this works. So to increase 60 milliliters by 70%, so we're going to have, eventually we're aiming to get 170%, because this is our original 100% to begin with, and we're adding on 70%. Okay, so we're going to convert that to a decimal to find our multiplier, which is 1.7, and then we just multiply our original amount, our 60 milliliters, by our multiplier 1.7. Okay, let's just type that in. So 60 multiplied by 1.7 is 102. And don't forget your units with milliliters here. Okay. This one here, to increase £940 by 7%. So be careful here. A lot of people make a little slip up here because this is 7%, not 70. Okay, so just be careful. We're going to be looking for 107%. Okay, 107% is what we're after. So to convert that to a decimal, we get, and this is where the accident normally happens, where people tend to go wrong, is 1.07. Okay, not 1.7, it's 1.07. So we're just going to now go ahead and do the same thing we did before. 940, our original amount, multiplied by 1.07, which is our multiplier. And we should, let's see what we get. 940 multiplied by 1.07, decimal. 1005.8. Now don't forget to look at your units. We're working in pounds. Okay, so we're just going to rewrite that in pounds. Put a little comment if you want. And we don't have 0.8s in pounds, but we tend to have the 0.80, okay, because we're thinking about 80 pence. So the first question here I've got is decrease 143 grams by 40%. Okay, so if we've got 40% off, because this is a decrease, we have to remember that we're going to have 60% on. Okay, that's our opposite of 40 up to 100. So 60% as a decimal is 0.6. So what I'm going to do is a 143 multiplied by 0.6. And the answer, let's see, 143 multiplied by 0.6 is, oh, it's a fraction, 85.8. And that is, was it grams, I think? Yes, grams, 85.8 grams. Okay. And the next one here, decrease again, 80 milliliters by 6%. Okay, so 6%, the opposite of that, because we're decreasing, we're going to take it away from 100, which gives us 94%. Okay, we're looking for 94% of 80 milliliters. 94% of the decimal is 0.94. So we're going to do our original amount, our 80 milliliters, and multiply that by our multiplier, 0.94. So 80 multiplied by 0.94, which is 75.2 milliliters. So I'm sure you're starting to see now that actually this is so much faster than the way we normally do this. That other way is still important, but if you're in an exam and you're allowed to use a calculator, this saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of time.